about the time when Eleanor Roosevelt told him, could you imagine that there is someone who's saying, when Eleanor told me, told him about bringing A. Philip Randolph to the White House and meeting with FDR, her husband. She brought that meeting together, and A. Philip Randolph told FDR about the condition of black people in this country, of working people in this country, and FDR responded to him, I don't disagree with anything you're saying, but you're going to have to make me do it. Make me do it. You've heard that story. Well, when Senator Obama was running for president, and he was in the backyard of a New Jersey house with about 100 people, and they were asking him questions, he was about to leave, and the guy in the back raised his hand and said, what are you going to do about the Middle East? And Obama told the story of A. Philip Randolph meeting with FDR, ending with, make me do it, make me do it. That's really the challenge to all of you and all the different issues you care about right now. There is a moment right now, and you have to decide whether you're going to do something about it or let it slip away. And I think one of the fundamental issues now are this issue of corporate control. It's an issue that unites people across the political spectrum. I mean, at Occupy, I had the most fantastic signs, written on the back of pizza boxes, because the pizza parlors around Wall Street were sending in pizzas that were sent in. People would put in orders from Egypt, from Wisconsin to support the occupiers. They called the pizza pies occupies. Yeah. And they used every part of them, right? They ate the pizzas and they used the boxes for signs. When there was this freak snowstorm in October, climate change I'm not going to get into tonight, but that's a health commercial as well. They removed all the signs except for one, hell snow, we won't go. They had many signs out, people would carry these signs that said things like, we'll believe corporations are people when Texas executes one. This idea of this moment in time and the power of corporations and how this has been a challenge in our country from way back. Go back a century ago. Dennis and I just wrote this column on Russ Feingold, the defeated senator in Wisconsin, who has now been named one of the 35 co-chairs of Obama's re-election campaign. Very interesting, because the day he was named this last week, Russ Feingold came into Democracy Now! Studios for an interview. And we went to the homepage of his website. He runs a PAC now called Progressives United. And across the top of his website, it said, "The president is wrong." Those 4 words headlined the website of Progressives United, founded by Obama campaign advisor Russ Feingold. He's referring to Obama's recent announcement that he'll accept super PAC funds for his re-election campaign. Feingold writes, "The president is wrong to embrace the corrupt corporate politics of Citizens United through the use of super PACs, organizations that raise unlimited amounts of money from corporations and the richest individuals, sometimes in total secrecy. It's not just bad policy, it's also dumb strategy." He says it's dancing with the devil. In 1905, President Theodore Roosevelt said to Congress, "All contributions by corporations to any political committee or for any political purpose should be forbidden by law." He signed a bill into law banning such contributions in 1907. In 2012, this 100-year history of campaign finance controls died thanks to 5 U.S. Supreme Court justices who decided in the 2010 Citizens United case that corporations can use their money to express free speech, most notably in their efforts to influence federal elections. This fundamentally is what has to shift in this country. And I think with the super PACs, with this undisclosed money, President Obama says he's going to raise more than $1 billion. and that's the Democrat in the presidential race. The Obama campaign has, as it is said, that they are going to raise more than $1 billion. How do you think, if that is just allowed to go on, unfettered, if the American people allow this to happen, how do you think we're going to fare when it comes to issues like health care? When you have this massive amount of money, we don't know from whom, coming from the drug industry, coming from the insurance industry, coming from the oil, the gas, the coal industry, coming from the weapons manufacturers, and yet still, it's ultimately your voices that make the difference. There is a force more powerful, and it is all of you in this room joining with people all over this country who make a decision about the course that we want our country to take. This is a pivotal moment. The Democracy Now! Team was at Occupy Wall Street, at Zuccotti Park, at Liberty Park, when the police dismantled it and arrested many of the people inside. It was like 3, 4 in the morning. There was a library of more than 5,000 books. Patti Smith provided a tent for it. The great singer who is famous for "People Have the Power," which is so true. And they got rid of everything, the police. They destroyed it. They brought together, and it was a great shame to the union activists, they brought in the sanitation workers, and together they just dismantled this encampment, bringing in dozens of sanitation trucks and dumping everyone's belongings and the entire library into this. When we got to the site, we were able to creep through the police line, and I picked up the one book that was left, believe it or not, on the ground at Zuccotti Park, and I still have it. Brave New World Revisited. Tiny little paperback, old book. His nonfiction response to the speed with which he saw modern society careening to a very bleak future. To say the least, it seemed very relevant as the encampment, motivated in large part by the opposition to the supremacy of commerce and globalization, was being destroyed. Huxley wrote in this book, "Big business, made possible by advancing technology and the consequent ruin of little business, is controlled by the state, that is to say, by a small group of party leaders and the soldiers, policemen, and civil servants who carry out their orders." Huxley writes, "In a capitalist democracy such as the United States, it is controlled by what Professor C. Wright Mills has called the power elite. This power elite directly employs several millions of the country's working force in its factories, offices, and stores, controls many millions more by lending them the money to buy its products, and through its ownership of the media of mass communication, influences the thoughts, the feelings, and the actions of virtually everybody." We can change this, but we have to challenge this power that does not serve the best of what democracy represents. Sharif Abdel-Qaddous, my colleague who's now reporting for us in Cairo, and Nicole Salazar, who was our multimedia producer, and I were arrested 2 years ago at the Republican convention. And rather almost 4 years ago, in 2008. And I'm going to end with a story because I think all of this has to be challenged. Dissent is what's going to save us in this country. But we were covering the first day of the convention. We just come from the major protests at the Democratic Convention where people were marching against war and poverty in the streets of Denver. And we flew into Minneapolis. It was Labor Day, the first day of the convention. Sarah Palin had just been announced as the vice presidential candidate with John McCain. And 10,000 people marched for peace. It was this beautiful blue sky morning. Maybe some of you were there, from St. Paul City Hall to the Excel Center, and they were led by soldiers. The Occupy movement is a big untold story. So many soldiers and returning soldiers are a part of the Occupy movement. I was in Louisville covering the encampment there. I went there. It was right in front of the prison. All these guys came out of tents. It was midnight. I was giving a talk, and I wanted to see and talk to the folks at the encampment. And I went there. And the first guy who came out was a veteran of the Persian Gulf War. Second guy who came out of a tent, had just been in Iraq from 2008 to 2010. And I said to him, what are you doing here? He said, well, I served my country there, and now I'm serving my country here. And when I told that story a few weeks later, someone said, no, he should have said, I was serving the 1% in Iraq, and now I'm serving the 99%. The protest was led by soldiers, some who had refused to fight in Iraq and Afghanistan, others who had fought and came back and felt that it was wrong, and some of them were wearing full military regalia, and they were very brave to do this. But then there were thousands of people, a cross-section of society, who marched, who came to St. Paul to march and express their views, and we covered that. And then I went to the floor of the convention center to interview delegates from the hottest state, from Alaska. And Sharif and Nicole went off to digitize tape at Democracy Now! In the TV studio we were working at. And then I got a call from Mike Burke, our senior producer, come quickly to 7th and Jackson. Sharif and Nicole have been arrested and they've been bloodied by the police. I said, what are you talking about? They were in the studio digitizing tape. I raced off the floor of the convention with Rick Rowley, great filmmaker with Big Noise Films. We raced to the streets of St. Paul, got to 7th and Jackson. The riot police had fully surrounded the area. It was fully contained. I raced up to the police, and I said, excuse me, I've just come from the convention. I'm wearing all the top security credentials. Allow me to interview presidents and vice presidents. It's their credentials. It's the state authorities who give us these credentials. And I said, you can see I'm fully credentialed. I have 2 colleagues inside. They're credentialed like I am. We need to have them released. It wasn't seconds before they ripped me through that line, twisted my arms back, slapped the handcuffs on, threw me against the wall onto the ground. And they charged me with interfering with a peace officer. If only there was a peace officer. I'm desperately looking for Nicole and Sharif. I can't see Nicole anywhere, but I see Sharif across the parking lot. His hands behind his back. I demand to be brought to him. They finally bring me to him. We're both standing there. His arm has been bloodied. And we've got our credentials on. We're shouting, you must release us. You see that we're journalists. You must release us. Whereupon the Secret Service came and ripped the credentials from around our necks. So then I was taken into a police van to be taken off to jail. And there was Nicole. Her face was bloody. She had her credentials on, and she was handcuffed. She quickly told me what had happened. She said they were digitizing tape. They heard a commotion outside. They wouldn't have been doing their job if they hadn't grabbed camera and microphone and raced downstairs. There were police, there were protesters, there was this parking lot. Nicole started filming, and the riot police were coming at her, shouting, on your face, and move. She said, where? She was against the cars. And they shout, on your face, And she didn't even know what hit her. From in front of her and behind, they took her down on her face. Her camera tumbled down, and the first thing they did was take the battery out of the camera, if you were wondering what they wanted to stop happening. She's on the ground, on her face. They've got needle boot in her back. They're pulling on her leg, and so they're bloodying her face. Sharif is a very cool guy. I mean, he dealt with this entire Egyptian revolution, but that was in the years to come. But he was this cool then. And he's telling the rioting police to calm down. And they take him, and they throw him up against the wall. They kick him twice in the chest. They bloody his arm, and they kill him down.
Kill the police!
Nicole and I was taken to the police garage where they erected cages to put the protesters in. And Nicole and Sharif were taken to jail. They faced felony riot charges. It was because the video of our arrest went online. Independent filmmakers put it up online. It went viral, the most watched video of the first 2 days of the Republican convention. But that night, just after a few hours, there was such a response. Thousands of people called in, tweeted in, faxed in, emailed in to release us that we were released. I got out first, then Sharif got out. He was in jail in a cell with the AP photographer. He was released before the AP photographer, and Nicole was released. I was taken to the convention center. I went up into the NBC skybox, the networks wanted to intervene. I told the story. When the camera was shut down, the NBC reporter came over to me and said, I don't get it. Why wasn't I arrested? So I said, oh, were you covering the protest outside? I mean, mind you, these are healthcare activists. These are doctors, these are students who are protesting, these are soldiers who are protesting, these are nurses who are protesting. This is, America that's outside. And I said, were you out covering the protest too? More than 40 reporters were arrested. And he said, no. So I said, oh, well, I'm not getting arrested in the skybox either. As Leon says, 90% of life is just showing up. You've got to get out there. And, it's really a very important point. We have to get on the convention floor, cover these protests, cover the convention. We got to get into the corporate suites. Who is sponsoring the Republican Governors Association, the Koch brothers? Who's covering the Democratic Senatorial Campaign Committee? We got to get into these rooms where they're serving the hors d'oeuvres. I don't know how many little crabs and shrimps I reached for to say, oh, and who bought these? And getting the doors slammed on me every time. That's our job too, going from the convention floor to the suites, to the streets, where the thousands of uninvited guests are, who also have something very important to say. Democracy is a messy thing, and it's our job to capture it all. And we shouldn't have to get a record when we try to put things on the record. Woo! So, the next day, as we continued to cover the convention, the police chief held a news conference announcing how proud he was of the police action so far. So I went into actually the policeman who opened the door to the press conference was my processing officer the night before. And I said, you not only have to let me in this news conference, you have to let me out when it's done. So I went in and I said, the reporters were asking questions, I raised my hand and I said to Chief Harrington, I want to know what have you instructed your police to do? And how do you expect us to operate in this atmosphere? And I described the bloodying of Sharif and Nicole, their arrests as well as my own. And he responded, if we wanted to operate in St. Paul, we could embed with the mobile field force. Embed with the police mobile field force. The next day I saw a Fox reporter with his baseball cap on Fox, and he's moving in the middle of this mobile field force. They're moving like one organism through the streets. You know what they're saying. Embed. It's like embedding the troops with the front lines of Iraq and Afghanistan. I think the embedding process has brought the media to an all-time low. The Pentagon